Life's got me in a vice grip, and I'm having trouble living how to righteous. But I fight it, dead like the night shift equivalent. Nice to smile, just like the violence. Society's a bitch, like a fish in the first towards them. Burning cover versus the worst, it's this bullshit. We're getting into my garden, with the purses turning us against the current. With fists to pistols, what's next? The missiles, like a happy trunk. Ribbon to bind the pistol, I'm bishop, fisher, with split the earth. Instead of getting a tower to the fucking dirt. And power's not the price of the shirt. I devour flowers, you mean the bird. So since the divinity got me, I'm like a living to redemptive commerce in church, oh dang. Still on the first verse, on the way to escape.
Welcome to the Walker Talkers. Guys,
Jared, he didn't believe there was a Walker herd coming.
better get walking, Jared.
Buy one, get 3 free Jello shots.
Take out this purple zone. Cut us loose. Give us our weapons. We can help you.
Dude.
Nobody's cutting anybody loose.
Shut the fuck up, Jared.
Killing these pricks right now.
Oh no, so we
Yeah.
saved them. All right,
I love
saved them,
that.
but no, there's a price to pay.
Guys, like, I got you, homie. And then he gets away. Rick's like, 1, 2, 3, go!
Morgan's like, I just came for the rotten bull. Now there's this.
He just Jared. Oh, God.
Hey, give me the stick.
Hey, give me the stick. That's so funny. That's like old school, like, yes.
Hey, this is the OG scene you were talking about right here.
This is the OG scene, man. Rick's like, thanks. I'm gonna kill you later.
Exactly.
Oh, God.
Almost out. Go on ahead.
That's it. 3. Rick's like, they're like, okay.
Damn, this one.
Oh, man. The OGs. Welcome to the Walker Talkers.
PanNerdia.
Woo! I'm AA Ron.
I'm Pete.
And welcome back, dudes. We're going to review episode 14 and predict episode 15 of season 8 of The Walking Dead.
Plenty of announcements, plenty of character development that came to an apex.
Oh, but first off, I have to mention this because I kind of feel like an idiot that I didn't last week. So, I don't know if many of you know this, but the actor who plays Tobin, you know Tobin, the one who had the love interest with Carol, kind of like the normal kind of, the most normal out of everybody that we could relate to from Alexandria. Big homie. They got bit a couple weeks ago and turned. Carol put him down. Remember him, Tobin? You guys know Tobin, right? Well, the actor, Jason Douglas,
Correct.
also is the voice of Beerus the Destroyer from Dragon Ball Super, the English dub. So I feel like I could have put 2 and 2 together so easily, but it didn't even cross my mind. But he is in fact.
How did you find out? He was
So-
chatting somewhere?
So basically, how I found out was through one of my favorite Dragon Ball YouTubers, Geekdom 101. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, it was hindsight bias. Like, I freaking knew that, but it's just so ironic that 2 of the shows that we cover here in PanNerdia.
It helped he just died and was on an after show, and
Right.
so like, you know, we forget some of these characters' names, like we know Tobin, but as far as like the actual the actors' names,
Right.
we will forget them because they have such small parts. But man, he was dragged out over like 3.5 seasons or something.
Yeah, ever
right?
since, I mean, he was one of the OG Alexandrians, the ones who were there before anybody else showed up. And just to know that, you know, he's out there in one of my favorite shows acting. And I didn't have a problem with the character. I thought he was cool. And then he's also the voice of one of my new favorite characters on one of my favorite series of all time, Dragon Ball, the universe of Dragon Ball. And he's one of the voices.
Super.
Dragon Ball Super. Is Beerus the Destroyer, or the God of Destruction, Beerus, or Beerus-sama.
Yes.
Beerus-sama. So yeah, I just wanted to fill you guys in with that. I thought it was a cool connection, and something I forgot to mention.
And poor Tobin, I mean, he was kind of cursed because he has something in common with a lot of other people that died on the show. And you know who that is? You know what that is? He was a babysitter for Judith.
Yeah,
Those
pretty
don't
much.
last too long.
No.
Tyrese. I mean, like, go down the list of different people that were caretakers. Even the 2 little girls that had to, you know, one of them had to look at the flowers.
You either get offed from taking care of Judith, or something horribly cripples you. Like, for example, you know, Gabriel, he had a couple times when he's like, I'll take the baby, and now he's blind. and
there you have
his
it.
bullet bitch for Negan. So I guess just that's
Curse
some weird
of Judith.
Curse of Judith, right? So yeah, man, let's get into what happened on episode 14 of The Walking Dead. A lot to talk about here. A lot to talk about.
I'll start it off. So Jadis, she had a lot of airtime on this episode, but the thing that sticks out the most to most fans is the fact that she had a hideaway cube that she lived in. I don't know if it was a modified storage unit buried under the heaps of trash or what, but it looked like a window display at an IKEA furniture store. I mean, it was just like lots of birch wood, smooth line, streamlined,
Super minimalistic,
no decorations, super simple. But that's kind of how Jadis produced this character and like became the leader of all these scavengers in the first place. Is all about that simplicity and being practical and just enough to get by and all that. But
right.
She did something else that was pretty great, even though now she's dressed in what looks like, a college dormitory clothes, whatever, instead of her, 9-inch nails outfit.
Right, like she's about to go to, the art studio for a few hours.
Right. She's going to go do some claymation or something. But but she basically made an awesome piece of art. It's probably the last piece of art we're going to see Jadis make, and that is her Walker art, which is living art. Well,
right.
Dead, yet living.
Living dead art.
We like to call it what Negan called it, which is Mr. 90 Degrees over there. The Walker was bent from, his belly.
On, a Home Depot flatbed cart.
He's 90 degrees, but not the right way. But I learned in the after show that, and then if you look at it again, there are hinges on the bottom of each pole on the side of the Walker where he would bend forward. So eventually, once he was scooted all the way up next to Negan, she would release it, and it would just go forward, and that he would just munch away on Negan. So
that's how it works. I missed that.
I was wondering, how's
he going to reach
this
him?
Just for a scare tactic? He's tied up, it's tied up. How's this going to work? But they explained it on the after show via the actress that plays Jada. So much appreciation there. There's a good punchline in the whole scene of her interrogating Negan, or not necessarily interrogating him, intimidating him more than anything.
Right.
And, Negan's full of BS as usual, trying to save his own ass, and he says something like, "Man, I punched myself in the dick."
With this one, right.
Yeah, right. So, in other words, he tried to say, this wasn't my decision, it wasn't my doing, I will rectify it, I will promise this and that, and then he spills his guts about Lucille being named after his wife that he cheated on all the time,
right.
and that died of cancer. He may or may have not hinted at that to Gabriel in his confession scene. But you know what? Cry me a river, play me violin.
Right.
I understand there's humanity everywhere, even with all the bad guys, but I'm not going to play it that way. He still forced people to torture, forced people to have sex with him, forced people to watch their loved ones die in front of them. He needs to go. He needs to be tortured. And whether he's imprisoned or killed or something in between, somewhere down the line, one of the characters needs to torture him. This needs to happen. Didn't happen with the governor.
Mm-mm.
And the governor died pretty peaceful death considering he got stabbed and shot in the head. He
right.
should have been eaten alive like a character did in this episode we'll get to in a moment.
Yeah, finally, holy shit.
But as far as Jadis and Negan goes, especially with Jadis, there's really nothing else to say except for she's obviously waiting for that helicopter to return, and it obviously doesn't come very often. It's once every few months or something. So there she goes back into her little IKEA cube and waiting it out.
So you think that, and this could be a very given or obvious for those who are a little familiar with the comic, but maybe not. So let me ask you this first. Do you think that helicopter is related to the Commonwealth?
I do. I don't think they're going to bring another group in like they did with the Wolves for a short time, or like they did with Terminus, which was excellent. And I'm not a big Gimple fan, but man, those two things, especially Terminus, was amazing. But I don't see them doing that just because of the time frame.
Right.
I see them because they admitted they're merging Fear and the original Walking Dead together, right now, it's gonna merge right after this season 8.
Mm-hmm.
That they're going to shift not only outcomes of deaths and love lives and losses and gains and all that. They already mixed that up quite a bit away from the comic, but kept the core of the storyline. But now you're having 2 shows combined in one. I really think they're going straight to the Commonwealth. They already introduced Georgie.
So I was going to add, this is the next question. Do you think the helicopter is related to Georgie?
Yeah, you don't just bring in Georgie and then don't bring her in next season.
Right. So that would be there would be no point at that.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Cool. I dig that. So this is the thing with me and Negan though he's showing his side of his humanistic side by trying to woe Jadis with his history as well, his apocalypse story, so to speak. Yeah. I still
baseball
think
bat versus photographs. Like he's trying to like relate to her.
I think he's doing it though
sentimental values
to have some sort of gain and manipulation. He wants to be ahead still, so he's using that for his own gain. Whether or not she sees through that or not.
But the fact that a flare, a pistol or two, and all her favorite photos were right next to him while he's tied up.
I didn't like that. It must have been in one of those suitcases real close, and she just didn't think about, he's resourceful. He'll just fucking wiggle over to my secret stash and pull it out.
I'm sure there's a lot of fans that look at that the same way they looked at the Walker stew in last week's episode where, the guy falls down the stairs, no one hears it, and they all get eaten alive.
There are sometimes they can be petty stuff, but I think even more so, Negan just having that shit while he's tied up is way more of an ass pull than the guy falling on the steps and nobody waking up.
True.
That's my opinion.
But still, quite convenient.
Very convenient plot thread there. Very, very convenient. But speaking of other plot threads, we got a lot going on with Morgan this week.
Oh my God. So many great scenes. He had one-on-one with Carol and with Rick. With Carol specifically, though, she's seen him go in and out of craziness like Rick has. And what better 2 people to like interact with Morgan at this point in time than Rick and Carol, and on a one-on-one basis, just because they can sort of bring him back at least temporarily for the better good of everyone and for just his own self. But Morgan and Carol, Morgan's out there looking for Henry. All he finds is hallucinations of Henry. He's convinced that after he sees the hallucination of Henry with the neck injury, that means he's dead.
He's gone.
And Carol pretty much says, I've given up too, but I'm out here to look out for you. But when they find Henry's stick, she follows that trail, and Morgan's like, I'm out. I'm going to go kill all the prisoners that got away. That's his main thing.
He's like, you know what you'll find. Yeah. I know what you'll find. And in this point, it's almost...
And she's like, I know. I already made my decision on what is out there. I just need to see it.
So she needs to know. He wants to hide from it. Very similar to how Rick is kind of hiding from the fact of reading Carl's letter and what that could possibly do to his spirit at the moment. He knows he needs to have that warrior spirit at the moment, and I think he might be afraid that what Carl's got to say might diminish that when he's got so much fire. And I think that's the same with Morgan at this moment. He's got a lot of that crazy, fiery passion to kill and slaughter these saviors. Clear! He's got fucking clear in his head, and something like seeing dead Henry could be the last string of the guitar to pling.
He might never be able to come back at all, right? That last string is plucked and he's done.
Dunsky.
But he was to the point where even when Carol and him went separate ways, he bumps into Rick after Rick, was on the edge of reading the letters from Carl, and instead he sits there, he sees Judith on the floor playing, he sees Carl's cowboy hat, and he has the rage in his eyes. Man, next scene, he's souped up with his...
Suited up and booted up.
I mean, he's got his throwing axe, he's got his knife, he's got a couple different weapons, guns. He goes straight to the soft-spoken Bronx Tale guy, and tells him like, well, what would you do if you're out there, real soft-spoken to the soft-spoken guy, playing him totally, and the guy's like, well, I would try to make my way back to the sanctuary, but Rick's like, yeah, but you got someone wounded with you. You guys haven't had water. Like, you need some place to hold down overnight, just for a night or two.
Really good at brain picking.
And because he said that opened up a whole door of, well, there's this dive bar off of whatever street. Rick is on his way out, and the guy's like, well, try to not kill all of them. Bring some of them back. They made a mistake. He goes, yeah, I could do that.
He's like, could do that.
And as soon as he said that and turned his back, I'm like, he's going to fucking go on a murdering rampage. And when he bumped into Morgan and Morgan didn't recognize him until he made Morgan snap out of it, he's like, you and I, let's finish this. Let's make sure there's not one left standing. And there was no hesitation. They saw a herd. They saw the bar. they knew what they had to do. Unfortunately, Jared and those leftover saviors that got away from the prison, they made a perimeter and they caught Morgan and Rick, tied them up in the bar. Where, by the way, where was the mechanic bull? That place was set up for a mechanic bull. Someone
absolutely
must have taken it.
Yeah, they took it, and
that would have been nice to have like a walker on the bull, like tied up, like woo!
Like stuck.
Maybe head falls off or something.
Yeah.
But that was probably the why we picked a portion of that scene for today's show to review, because that's what we call what do we call that scene? Walker Barroom Buffet.
Oh yeah,
because basically between like Jared trying to kill Morgan and Rick, and then getting knocked down by one of his own guys, and then that guy being sacrificed because of that decision, another guy shooting Walker right before it bites Rick, then that decision is a bad one because Rick ends up killing him anyway. So it becomes a Walker stew. I mean, it got to the point where Rick didn't even have to punch or shoot anymore. He was just throwing these dumbasses into like a corner where the Walkers were just.
He had him perfectly
going to
trapped.
Chowtown.
And it is somewhat. You're like, damn, that is ruthless for even Rick to do that. But it's not in the same instant because they had it coming. What
did he do that he's never done in like all these seasons?
He gives him his word.
Correct.
And he doesn't follow by it.
Yeah, the last time he gave his word, he really did mean it. But some sorry-ass kid that like gave them like directions or information gets capped via arrow by Daryl that was with Rick. That was back when they were trying to find the weapons and all that, right?
Okay.
And Rick was like, I just gave him my word. He's like, that was your word, not mine. Right. Kind of like that Menendez or whatever guy from season 1 or whatever. They met up, and then Daryl walks in from behind and kills him. And Rick's like, I just almost had him like to become back to normal.
Right.
Like, I don't care. Like, there's Daryl like not.
Daryl's like, he chose this, and this is what he got.
He works for Negan, he dies. Like,
right.
Well, maybe if that was the mentality in the first place, we wouldn't be in this pickle.
But man, I mean, this is the classic first season, first episode OG team up of Rick and Morgan. In freaking clear destruction mode. They might as well be guys of destructions of the freaking apocalypse.
Right.
Going in there and clearing the house and taking names and saying we'll be friends and turning on them and getting them out of there. And the most satisfying kill of them all.
Oh, good old Jared. Long-haired douchebag.
What we've been waiting for.
So douchebaggy that even on The Talking Dead where he sat next to Jadis, the character Jadis, just him giggling and smiling before he even spoke, I like wanted to jump through the TV and
he like looked the same
and smack him in the face or punch him. Did you notice that Jared in the bar scene, he had mentioned to the saviors that were starting to get Rick was getting in their head. Mm-hmm. He's like, "There's no herd coming," which there was. He goes, "There's no deal at Hilltop," which there could have been. And then, but the other thing is like this guy right here. He's pointing at Morgan and goes, he strangled one of his own with his bare hands. And I'm thinking, how did he know about that? Remember Morgan killed Richard? Because Richard was trying to sacrifice himself.
Yes,
but
Richard.
instead, Henry's older brother got killed, and that started, like, Ezekiel, like, made up his mind, okay, we're part of the war now. Mm-hmm. Because Richard wanted that domino to fall, so Ezekiel would be like, okay, I'm part of this whole, like, anti-Negan crusade. And so, like, how did Jared know that Richard got strangled by Morgan? It was like, word gets around. I mean, there's.
That's
no
what I was thinking. I was like, he didn't see
apocalypse.
it. Right. Word must have got. Maybe it was when they were all chicken cooped up.
It was kind of well done though, because like they threw that in there, and it's kind of like just another thing to throw into Morgan's face, and Morgan's just gonna take that, and he's got this deep, deep bottle of black, anger and hate and like revenge bottled up, and he's gonna unleash that cork and Fear the Walking Dead,
which is gonna be very interesting because he's gonna be up. He's basically going to be being introduced to new characters, and in his eyes, new characters, and then thrown into a mix that he's not familiar with. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, he's been alone. And if he wasn't alone, he had one person he recognized, which was Rick.
Right.
They kind of bring him in. Now it's going to be kind of like, well,
yeah.
But Morgan chose his path and went to OG Rickland,
and he had two other big scenes though, as far as like Morgan. This was a Morgan episode big time, but like as far as like finding that map that Abraham left way back in like seasons like 5 or whatever,
right?
And like found out where he was going and all that, all the way up to like even all the 2 different hiatuses he had, all the way up to this point. He saw Henry at the end alive. He had to touch him, make sure he was alive, and said, "I killed the guy that killed your brother."
Oh,
and
yeah.
Smiled like, "Oh, he's fucking nutball, 100% at this point." Like, I was worried he was going to kill Henry, thinking Henry was just like a ghost or something. And actually, like, "Oh, you are real," but he didn't.
And Henry just goes, "I'm sorry." Like,
Yeah.
he's sorry
and, like,
that
barely
Morgan
put
had
his
to
hand
kill.
on his shoulder, like, "I'm sorry,
Yeah.
like that you had to do that."
Which is kind of annoying to me a little bit
It was.
because
He was like, "No, you're not." I would have been like, "Fuck you."
yeah, well, because the kid was just about to snap
Pardon my
and
French.
shoot everybody in that chicken coop like the night before. You know, so that's kind of annoying that he's kind of like, now I'm all changed and sorry, Morgan, that you almost killed somebody.
Yeah, he had to run out on his own and get trapped under the branches, just like his little sister. Oh, his little sister,
right?
The actress that played Sophia,
His spiritual successor sister.
Yeah, that was a little Easter egg they threw in there. So like the similarity between those 2 actors that are related in real life, and there they are on the same show in the same position, like hiding from walkers.
Though Carol got to be the
roots.
one who actually saved. Almost, it kind of came full circle, and she
Right.
kind of got that redemption in a way, or that at least that feeling of finally finding that lost one, that little lost one. Yeah, I mean,
But when Morgan though told Henry that, I'm like, "What? Aren't you gonna tell him how he died?" It was so cool because Lenny James did fight him and then lure Jared outside, and he closed that gate
and then
held him by his
Oh,
fucking hair
I
and
loved
shirt.
it.
Go, let me go. Like, they're already munching on you, dude. Like, whatever. But he let them munch a little bit before he let go and he dropped down. But Lenny James said in an interview that he tried his hardest in all of his acting career not to smile from ear to ear because he thought that Jared character was such a dick. He wanted to smile while he was being eaten alive, pretend eaten alive.
right.
And it's so true because, like, I saw that Jared guy on Talking Dead, and, like, he started talking a little bit, and I'm like, nope, it's still not, I still don't like him that much.
Right.
Like, other actors stuff, they start talking, I'm like, oh, yeah, you did a great job acting like someone else. I'm like, you didn't really have to alter yourself too much there, Jared.
And that's the thing, like, with the Jared, for example, that actor, look, he obviously was decent enough to get on The Walking Dead, but he was not, by any means, the best actor around. It was more you hated him for the way he fucking looked. Now, here's a kind of a comparison example. You have the actor who played Joffrey in Game of Thrones, the little boy prince, the evil little boy prince, the king, I should say, that everybody freaking hated, not only in the show, but whoever watched it. But he was a good actor, really good actor. Yeah, he looked annoying, but his acting was superb. And they say he's extremely awesome and nice in person. And that if you hate somebody that much, a villain in a show, that means they're a good actor. Though with this particular case and Jared, I don't think it was based on the acting. I think because it was just annoying. I think it was just based on the way he looked.
Yeah.
Sorry,
But
guy.
Greg Nicotero, one of the main directors, he told the guy that played Jared to, like, up the dick. Like, in other words, like, that was really good. You're a real, like, total dick, but up it a little more. Like, he
kind of jumped the shark, jumped the dick.
He wanted him to, like, push him to the point where, like, anyone would hate him. Like, even his own mother would be like, yeah, I want to throw you in, like, a vat of acid, like the Joker or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't want to.
He did a great job, kudos to him, and bye-bye. Don't want to see you again. Speaking of not seeing again, one of my predictions is Simon will not die until Survival Sunday.
Right.
Because every time I say he's going to die, he doesn't. So maybe now I'm saying he's not going to die, he will die next week. But
So what about when Rick finally gets back from the slaughter?
Yeah, that's the main thing to talk about. That's the only main thing to talk about left to talk about. Blah.
Well, no, there's one more thing after that, but...
Oh, well, there's predictions. But
No,
I'll let
even
you...
before that.
Well, when he pulled over and he obviously picked someone up, they show him pulling up to the gates of the sanctuary, and he's let in, but he doesn't have anyone sitting shotgun. No one's hiding in the trunk, I don't think. And the preview show him talking to Dwight, and they got the map laid out and everything, and he's giving his directions. We'll get to that a little bit later again, but it's in the predictions part. But, like, obviously whoever he picked up, he dropped off somewhere else.
Right. He he picked up somebody, which was is a big mystery right now. We have predictions on who it is, but we want to know what happened to that person because they weren't there once he showed up and was like, "Daddy's home," kind of thing. But while that daddy got home, so did our daddy, Ricky Grimes. He shows up to the hilltop, fucking blood splattered, looking vicious, and walks straight up to the door. Bronx boy looks at him like, "Did you save anybody?" And Rick gave him a look like, "Dude, does it look like I saved anybody?" And I love that.
Thanks for the intel, pretty boy.
Yeah, he's like, "Thanks," which I loved. And then
so what was the other thing you said?
that was it. That's remember that's I
yeah.
said about Rick, and then I was gonna say the other thing was Negan. Was the whole Negan picking up thing?
Right.
Who did he pick up? I mean,
who did he pick up? Let's go ahead and melt right into the predictions. But before we do predictions, I guess I could talk about some of the quick sneak peeks they brought in.
Mm-hmm.
Like they showed Negan surprising Dwight, and they showed him in the meeting room with Arat and Dwight and that one girl and maybe another person. That other person was probably Simon. And they did show Simon talking to Dwight, like trying to say, like, let's find like-minded people to get together and like go against Negan and everyone else on our own kind of thing.
Right.
Obviously, Simon wasn't offed right away and punished right away because Negan likes to play mind games and use information to his advantage more than actual assets, but information. So that brings me to a prediction that, because there's really nothing else to talk about. Aaron is surrounded by the Oceanside girls, big deal.
Right.
Daryl and Rosita seem to be scoping out Eugene's outpost. They've showed that 2 weeks in a row.
We thought they were going to do that,
without them having it on the show. Like, why are you previewing that? We're not going to show it. And they show them running around this like desolate ashland of bones and stuff. Like, where are they? Are they at an outpost? Are they somewhere in between? Is it just like going to take up time for a build up to Survival Sunday? I don't know, but Negan must have picked up one of two people. I could say three. I could say Carl's resurrected.
Yeah,
but that's not it. But, you know, Gregory's been missing. He wasn't with the Saviors that were at the dive bar. He went and did his own thing.
Yeah, he escaped once that pen was open. He escaped on his own.
And if he was picked up off the side of the road by Negan, that's how Negan would probably react with his cocky, like, self. But he didn't take him in with him. So I'm thinking, my prediction is he dropped Gregory off somewhere close enough to the hilltop where he would go back into the chicken coop prison and be Negan's little spy, or maybe try to even poison Maggie like in the comic, or maybe not. Or maybe the person that Negan picked up is going to blow everything out of the water for all these little main characters, and that is Laura, the, I guess she's kind of like a brute kind of girl. She's definitely kind of lesbian looking with the tattoos and the short hair and her gruffness and all that. She shot Dwight way back when Dwight turned and joined the Alexandrians. Since she got away and the other Saviors didn't, he was convinced that his cover's blown, but obviously his cover wasn't blown. But now if Negan picked up that Laura girl, he's going to use her to his advantage. And when they're looking at the map, the next little preview scene shows Dwight in his own room, kind of like writing a note on the map with all the X's and O's that Negan wrote up, saying this is where Negan's going to be, this is where group's going to be, that group, giving Rick's group a heads up like he did before all the shit went down. And I think Negan knows that and wants him to do that. And I think Dwight's going to die. I think Simon's going to die. And I think Daryl's going to probably take over Dwight's storyline or arc as far as like when they rebuild when the all-out war is over, and Daryl's probably going to be in charge of all the stuff that Dwight was put in charge of in the comic.
I mean, think about it. They've done it with plenty of other characters. They kind of take a central idea of a character. They might split them up in a couple. Some might get intertwined in death, and then it kind of comes back full circle, and you get that character that was meant to do this or that. And that makes sense. I think Daryl could totally kind of get recycled into Dwight, which is somewhat the spiritual successor, or predecessor, I should say, of what Daryl is in general, because Daryl wasn't in the comics. He was made for the show.
Correct.
But a lot of things that Daryl was doing, and they kind of derived from the comics and vice versa. So I'm totally on board with that prediction.
I'll tell you what, the only other prediction is I think it's going to be blander than anticipated. I think we're going to have to wait till Survival Sunday to really see some showdown, action-packed scenes, big-time deaths, story-altering endgame situations. But this next show that you're going to see here is probably going to be mostly Rick rewinding, reading all of Carl's stuff.
Right.
Maybe even not just his letter, but his letter to Michonne or whoever else. He's going to break down, and this is the only saving grace for Negan. But is it the saving grace for the leftover saviors? Because if they're creating a battle plan, and Negan knows about his right-hand man doing what he did to the scavengers, and if my prediction is correct, he knows about Dwight's shit, then what's going to go down? I mean, he doesn't have that many people, does he have the bullets yet? I don't know. That's
right.
where
that story's kind of been up in the air, because we last left off with old boy in there making him away, and we haven't seen him in a minute now, Eugene, and in a few episodes now.
Oh. Hey, quick shout out to the big giant knife that Daryl whipped out in front of Maggie and the rest of the group Hilltop. His line was, "I say we just go hand-to-hand combat." You know what I mean? And it was like the biggest effing knife I've ever seen him hold.
Really?
Like, I've seen him with knives and like different machetes and
I
stuff.
remember that scene.
It was like, what the? It was like, good day, mate. Like, that's a knife.
That's awesome.
Announcement time.
Well, you know what else is awesome? Survival Sunday.
Sunday. Survival Sunday. The Walking Dead. And Fear the Walking Dead.
Right. So, next Sunday, guys, we will be having a special live broadcast over at our local movie theater to watch not only the season finale of Season 8 of The Walking Dead, but also the season premiere of Season 4 of Fear the Walking Dead, as the two series come to a singularity point. Says Pete's parrot. And
Stop it!
that's some survival right there.
Exactly.
And guys, we're looking forward to it. Not only is it going to be our
on location red carpet show pregame awesomeness.
That's what we're most excited for out of the PanNerdia van. We're not only going to review what happened in tonight's episode 15. We're going to predict what's going to happen in the finale, as well as our predictions for Season 4 of Fear the Walking Dead. Because not only is it going to be our last episode of the Walker Talkers Walking Dead OG, it's going to be the first episode of the Walker Talkers Fear the Walking Dead Season 4, which will continue with the following Sunday after that. So it's a big extravaganza of Walker guts and Maggie butts, and
Maggie.
I can't wait
Maggie.
for next Sunday, and I hope we see you guys there for plenty of fun.
This is Season 8, and this is The Walking